welcome to The Gathering. I am Bree.
I'm Carlisha.
And we are missing Janelle. She has taken some time to focus on family. She's on maternity leave, but although she's not here physically, she's always with us in spirit. We love you, we miss you now, and can't wait for you to join us when you are ready.
Yes, when you are ready. And I hope you guys are ready to be a member of our special little family. So please remember to subscribe, like, share this video. We welcome all of your comments and make sure that you turn on those notification bells so you never miss an upload.
Absolutely. Guys, we are very excited about the topic of this particular Gather Gab. One, because of what we're going to be talking about, but two, because we're having our first Gather guest. We're going to bring her on in just a second, and she is going to talk about something that is very near and dear to her heart and near and dear to all of our hearts, really. But without further ado, we are going to be talking about Developmental Disability Awareness Month. I think it's a great time to probably bring on our guest, Cor. What do you think?
Agreed. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Dominique. This is, like we just said, our first gathered guest. We are so excited to have her joining us today as we talk about Developmental Disability Awareness Month. It is observed every March throughout the United States. And so developmental disability, that population started to receive much deserved support and attention after the proclamation that was introduced by President Reagan in 1987. The goal behind the Awareness Month is to spread some awareness about this very unique population and to provide some sort of advocacy for those individuals that are diagnosed with developmental disability as well as their families. We want to promote community inclusion. Some of the common developmental disabilities are cerebral palsy, autism, Down syndrome, and those who fall on the fetal alcohol syndrome spectrum. And again, those are just some of the few common. 1 in 6 children identify as being diagnosed with a developmental disability, and these disabilities can impact one's growth as well as their cognitions. The goal of this month is to make sure that we are acknowledging the fact that individuals with varied abilities, so those with and without a diagnosis, can all lead very productive and active lives. We want to steer away from saying normal lives because normal is relative. Normal is what you make it, but we want to make sure that we are promoting the idea that everybody, no matter what your level of ability when it comes to growth and cognition becomes, you can lead a very productive life. And we think that our special guest is going to help us to promote that in her very special way.
Agreed. When we knew that it was Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and that we were going to discuss this issue, there was only one person that I could think of asking. And many, many years ago, I worked in disability services, and I had the opportunity to meet our special guest. She is an awesome person. She is a therapist. She is an educator. She is an author. She is one of the directors of the Office of Disability Services at Arkansas State University, and just an all-around great friend, sister, daughter, all of the things. And so she's very, very knowledgeable about a lot of different things, but one of the things that she's most knowledgeable on is disabilities, and from the perspective of being someone who works with people with disabilities and someone who has experienced disability in her own life. So I want to introduce our guest, Miss Dominique White, and so I will let her tell you guys a little bit more about who she is and what she does. And we just want to thank you again for being here with us. We're so grateful to have you become a part of the Gather family and be our first guest host.
Awesome. Well, first of all, Carlisha, thank you for that awesome introduction. I'm going to have to pay you back one way or another somehow. And thank you all for having me. I really appreciate you even asking. Anytime there's an opportunity to talk about disability, I always want to jump on that because I'm always passionate about advocacy and representing people with disabilities in a positive light. Like Corlisha said, I work for Arkansas State University in what is now the Access and Accommodation Services office. When Ms. Corlisha was there, it was Disability Services, but we've gone through a name change. So I'm one of the directors of that office, and I got into this field, to be honest. I didn't see myself working with people who have disabilities. I went to school to become a mental health therapist, and I always say the Lord sort of put me where He wanted me to be. And so I ended up finding a job at the Disability Services office, the very office that I had to use as a student. And I had to come in and open myself up to the possibility of needing accommodations myself, which was not something I was always comfortable with, but that very same office that I needed to use, now I get to serve students from there. So, it's where I was supposed to be, I think, even though it wasn't on my original path. So that's a little bit about what I do. And in terms of the population of students I serve, I'm glad you all asked me to do this, because students with developmental disabilities is actually my population of students. So I serve students on the autism spectrum, students with various learning disabilities, students with ADD, ADHD, which is also in that realm of developmental disabilities. And while I don't serve folks with cerebral palsy, which is a common developmental disability, as Ms. Corlisha said, I do live with a disability myself, and I do have a mild form of cerebral palsy. So I've got a lot of experience from a workplace perspective, but also from a life perspective. And that's me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for being open and sharing your personal details, and thank you on behalf of all of the Gathering family for your dedicated service to this very special and, like we said, much deserving population. We want to jump into a couple of questions. So Corley, you want to take the first question?
Sure. I know that, of course, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine if someone is pregnant, or if they found out that upon birth, that their child has a developmental disability, it can be a daunting task, a daunting thought to kind of think about what kind of life is my child going to have, because you don't always see the success stories. You kind of read the statistics and you kind of see maybe the not so great aspects of it. And so I know going to college may seem, when your child is a baby or a toddler or going through elementary school, like college may seem like an unfathomable thought. So kind of what advice would you give to a parent of a toddler or a little one who is having a hard time kind of envisioning a future for their child, and some of the things that they can do to try and make sure that their child has an option to participate in life just as other children have those same opportunities?
Sure. It's really hard for me to speak from a parental perspective. Obviously, I'm not a parent. I don't have a child with these types of needs, but I can speak from my own perspective, I think. So what I would say is just research, talk to as many people as you can. Right now we're in a space where Google has everything, and social media provides support groups for parents and things like that in a way that was not possible when I was growing up or when we were growing up. We didn't have support groups online. We didn't have Google in the same way where you could go find out information. People were just lost and didn't know what to do. So what I would say to parents is that you don't have to feel lost. There is information out there that you can get to help your child to figure out what support they need, to figure out what state agencies might work with them from the time that they are in grade school on until they get to college, to figure out what nonprofits are maybe available in your area that you can take your children to and get them involved in those things. get them involved in some speech therapy, some physical therapy, whatever it is that's available where you are. And there are also finances available to help you make sure your child can take advantage of some of these things. So what I would say is it's overwhelming. It is unimaginable when you first get news like that, probably. But you're also not out here by yourself in a way that you might have been 10, 15, 20 years ago because of what we have access to now with the internet, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That's really, really good feedback, Dominique. I know that one of the goals of this month is to promote community inclusion. So to help individuals that have received a diagnosis and help their families to feel a part of the community and take advantage of community resources. So I think that what you shared has hit on that spot on. I think one of my questions would be, what services do you think are still needed? So you listed a lot of resources as far as different occupational, physical therapies, speech language pathology, all of that. You've given a lot of support, so talking about local nonprofits and just seeking services from trained professionals. But is there something that you can think of that is still needed to help individuals and their families promote productivity in one's life?
I think exactly what you all are doing at the gathering is that advocacy piece and inviting people to come and talk about what it means to have a developmental disability, what your life can look like if you have a developmental disability. I think all the resources are there, but people need to know that those resources are there. So sometimes you don't even know what's available to you. So the education about what's available to you, and then that advocacy and education piece about those children don't have to live a life that's less than. You can live a productive life and a fulfilling life regardless of whatever diagnosis you have, because you have the resources available to you to make sure that you can do that, to make sure that you can achieve to whatever your highest potential level might be. I think this is what's needed. This is what's lacking. I think you mentioned earlier that this month wasn't really recognized or created until 1987. That is not a long time ago. That is 34 years ago, if I can do my math correctly. It's the advocacy piece of it. This is still very new. This is still something that folks don't know a whole lot about. Disability in general, whether it's developmental or some other kind, is still very stigmatized. So it's this education piece, this advocacy piece that we're doing now, I think, that's needed.
Good to know. Thank you. That was excellent.
Agreed. So I definitely think the more parents and individuals themselves can advocate, and of course, like we're happy to be a part of that as well. And people like you, like it's, as much as we can get the word out to advocate so people can easily access information, can easily find it and know exactly where to go and what to do, and the people who connect with, I think that would just make things so much easier, and that people can have a sense of comfort that if you knew somebody growing up with disability, your child is not going to have the same experience as you did, or as the people that you went to school with. You don't have to have that fear. And I think people fear kind of what they knew, people they knew and what they went through. But this is definitely, just like everything else has evolved, this has also evolved. But I need more people to continue to tell their story and to talk about it. I know one of the things that, while working where you now work, and I'm happy that there's been a name change. I think a lot of things have probably changed since I was there. But as I recall, we did have a lot of communication and engagement, especially on the front end with parents. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we dealt with parents more so than the actual students, and particularly with those with developmental disabilities. Parents are so used to being their child's only advocate, their child's champion. If my child needs something, I have to be the one that's going to have to stand there until the principal gives, or the counselor gives, or whoever gives them what they need. And they are used to being their child's support system, basically. However, I think when they are transitioning to the world of work or to higher education, there are some things that don't transfer fully. There are some things that was maybe some services that were put in place in high school or in elementary school that don't quite translate the same in higher education or in the workplace. So can you speak a little bit to that transition process and how parents can start to, as their children get a little bit older, to start transitioning not only themselves, but their children, to prepare them for higher education or for the world of work, because accommodations and just in general, like it's going to be different now that they're going to be a little bit more independent.
For sure. It's difficult. It is. It's difficult for parents or guardians to let go because, as you said, I have been my child's only advocate. And a lot of times what parents have experienced, from my understanding, is just their child getting thrown away. Their child getting thrown in special education and not really learning and not really being challenged and their needs not really being met. And they're just kind of passing them on through school. So the child is being thrown away or just not properly accommodated, frankly. So you already are going to meet parents who are resistant to letting go, who are resistant to you giving whatever expertise you have and saying, I'm really going to help your child. I'm here. This is what my service is for. This is what my office is for, because they've heard that before. And nothing has happened for their kid. They've heard, we're going to do this, what have you. And then those promises are never met. So I don't have a choice but to be a fierce advocate and to just stand up for my child. And you need to do that. But also, I would say just slowly back off, Maybe when they get in high school, every year, just slowly find ways where you can sort of let go. So if you have to go and do their IEP plan for the next year, maybe let them go in and talk to the school counselor and you sit outside. You know what I mean? Whatever those little baby steps are. Slowly start inching back a bit and letting them take the reins on some of that stuff. And maybe when they get to college, they're a little bit more prepared to stand up for themselves, to advocate for themselves. That doesn't mean you just leave them out there in the wind, but just slowly start backing up a bit. Even if, say, you go in the meeting with them, you go and you just be a silent support and let them talk. Let them talk to the counselor. Let them tell the counselor what they need, what has worked for them in the past, what has not worked, what they want to try, those kind of things. So it's really a difficult transition, and I understand that certainly, but just little by little, find ways to sort of start letting go and letting them take the forefront there. And then maybe it's a bit easier once they get to college or get to the workforce, because you might not be going to college, but you might want to go right to work. Okay, how do you request workplace accommodation? How do you do that? And if you've never been given the opportunity to speak for yourself and to use your voice or to find your voice, then you won't know how to do that. And your parent can't go to work with you, unfortunately.
That is excellent advice, I think. And we also want to just encourage people to kind of destigmatize the whole asking for an accommodation or a modification. It's in place to help you to lead the most productive life that you're able to lead, as independently as possible. We like to think of an accommodation or a modification as just evening the playing field. So it's not giving someone an advantage, and we're not looking at your varied ability as a disadvantage in any way. We just want to make sure that when you are side by side with your peers or your colleagues, that you have the same opportunities, and we're just leveling the playing field. There's a picture that keeps coming in my mind that I've seen all over the internet, where it was, I think, maybe like a father and two sons looking at a game over like a fence. And so they had like 2 different pictures. So one, all of them were on like a block. And so the father was really high, the middle son could still see over, but the baby still couldn't see over the fence because he's much shorter. But if they both gave the baby their step stools, then everybody can see over the fence now. And so it's not that we're giving the baby more of an advantage. We're literally just evening his playing field so that we can all enjoy the game. Nobody is missing the game. Everybody can see it now. And that's what we like to think of in accommodation. I am not giving someone a heads up. I'm literally just giving them a platform so that they have the same opportunities. So I love the fact that you are encouraging parents and the individual that has been diagnosed to seek the available services, and then you're encouraging parents to have their children advocate for themselves. We're all about self-advocacy. So sometimes you need an advocate, but then we want to teach self-advocacy so that you can take the reins and, do your due diligence in your own process to the best of your ability also.
And I do want to say, I know that is not easy to do. Advocating for yourself and asking for an accommodation and asking for what you need, that is not easy to do. I am 33 years old, well, almost, and just learning how to advocate for myself. And I speak with students every day about how important that is. And I'm just learning how to do it myself. So I'm under no illusion that this is easy, that you're going to wake up one morning and you're just going to have it together. It's something that you have to practice intentionally every day as you go through life. For example, I just went to an event yesterday. We were trying to recruit junior level high school students to come to the college. And so one of the things at the event, because we're trying to be safe and cautious with COVID-19, is we all had tables, but there would be no chairs. This is a 4-hour event. No chair was not going to work for my life. And I contemplated whether or not I should ask if I could have a chair. And I even thought about it. I told my coworker, I may send them an email and ask them if I could have a chair, but it's okay if they couldn't do it. I would just have to send somebody else. And the reality of it is it's not okay if they couldn't do it, because that should have been available to me. But I was very hesitant in asking for that in the first place. Now, I did ask for it and I did get it. So it all worked out. But what I'm saying is I know it's not easy because I still have to navigate that every day in my own life. And I'm 33. So I'm not expecting high school students or college level students to really just have this in the bag. You just practice it every day. And you are intentional about it every day and learning every day and coming into your own every day.
Hi guys, that conversation was so good we had to break it up into 2 parts. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of our conversation with our guest host Dominique White. And for part 2, we're going to go right back into it, and we are going to focus on advocacy, transitioning individuals with developmental disabilities from secondary school to higher education, as well as into the world of work. And we're also going to get into Dominique White as the author. So stay tuned. We hope you guys love this part just as much as you love the first. Bye.